Well, good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. I'm Jeff Blueball, Chairman of the Sedgwick County Commission. My colleagues and I are holding this listening town hall here to directly hear from you, the public, regarding data center zoning. I'd like to begin with a quick status update and how we got here. The Board of County Commissioners has adopted an interim development control resolution and instructions to the Metropolitan Area Planning Department to work toward drafted regulations on data center zoning to present to commissioners. At this time, we are not reviewing or receiving any applications. Our role tonight and during this process is to discuss and potentially establish zoning policy for Sedgwick County. As stated earlier, the purpose of the meeting is for commissioners to hear directly from the public regarding data center zoning. Our action tonight is to listen, take notes, and better understand community perspectives. Commissioners may ask clarifying questions of speakers, but there will not be back and forth debate, and commissioners will not be answering questions unless they relate specifically to the zoning policy process. A few ground rules for this evening. The topic tonight is focused exclusively on data center zoning in Sedgwick County. We ask that speakers avoid repeating points that they've already been made so we can hear as many unique perspectives as possible. This is a time for the public, and we want to hear from you, and we want to hear from your neighbors. Please be respectful, please be courteous to one another. Right now, I think we have around 40 or 50 speakers, so we're gonna try to, I've set a hard stop at 2 hours. We'll try to go a little bit over if we have to, but we're gonna have to limit time to 3 minutes per person. So I'm gonna ask folks that if you would, if someone's already made the point, would you please yield your time to somebody else? Because I know a lot of times I do the same thing. Somebody gets up there and speaks, and well, that's what I was going to say. And if you would just, hey, let someone else speak, just because we want to hear as many unique opinions as what we can. We really appreciate, we value everybody's opinion, but we don't want any kind of repetitiveness. So a staff member will be managing the timer for the public, so please be respectful for that. I'll try to let you finish your thought, instead of just cut you off. It's 3 minutes. I'll try to let you, but please try not to go on and on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a name, and I'll probably say, this person's up next, and kind of like our baseball player here, Ryan Beatty's up on deck. We'll try to say who the next person up on deck is. That way we can just kind of keep going and hear from as many of you as possible. So we appreciate your participation and your willingness to engage in this important policy discussion. So our first speaker will be Craig Lubers. We'd ask when you do come up, please say your name and your address. And up on deck will be Kent Rowe. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Craig Lubers. I live in the Garden Plain area and here with the Renwick Group. First off, thank you for hosting and putting on this public event and giving citizens time to speak and share their thoughts, whether for or against this activity. Thank you also for the change in venue and being flexible as we all try to learn more on this topic. This is a group here that cares about what we have worked hard to create and, more importantly, to preserve. And we are here because we believe this is at risk. So what is at risk? For us, it's one of the fastest growing areas in the county. It's a rural, ag, faith-based community which already faces pressure from other avenues, markets, and federal policy. It's an identity at risk in the form of a tech transformation that's little understood, regulated, or rationalized. Let's get to facts. The Renwick area has seen the highest level of activity thus far anywhere in the county, particularly in Garden Plain. Surveying work continues to be done, including painted roads and aerial flyovers. I'm not implying that's unlawful, So why then would a community be so sensitive to a new industrial development in the area? It must be for some irrational fear of the future. But one thing that many people forget that I feel is prudent to remind everyone is not about a fear of the unknown, it's an experience we have from the past. Just a few years ago, a project was pushed by the same company, using the same tactics, same coercion, and same litigation strategies. And it was simply a project 1 to 2 miles west of the current one and happened to fall across the county line in Reno. But it's the same families, same groups, and same community impacted. They apparently forgot about us, but we did not forget about them or their underhanded maneuvers. That's a big reason why you've seen the response you have thus far, and the community is also by the elected bodies in the area. So why should a community deserve to be informed about what's going on with thousands of acres of private land being sold? That's not our business. Fifth Amendment property rights are not to be challenged. How could a community feel so entitled on this? This is my answer to those questions. As soon as these private transactions request and even possibly insist or coerce local public servants in the form of city council members or similar to sign NDAs, or secondly, as soon as these private transactions and the viability of its success becomes dependent on new infrastructure in the form of public or municipal utilities or anything similar, as soon as those items are breached, it is absolutely and undeniably in the community's rights to be involved, informed, and have an ability to protect its general welfare, specifically regarding these community-defining decisions. We deserve protection in the face of this tech revolution to defend our right, in charge of our future, and not hidden from it. If these hyperscale data centers are everything they are touted to be in private meetings, where's the PR campaign? Where is the Greater Wichita Partnership? Where are these company town halls being held? Where is the marketing material, the educational seminars? Sorry, I'll finish quickly.
Yep.
The brochures. We can't find it. It doesn't take violating an NDA to tell the public that we have won the AI lottery due to the combo of their capital portfolio and our extensive local resources. What an easy marketing opportunity, but not a single document in almost a year, maybe more. You commissioners have put out more information, which we appreciate, but what about them? I'll finish briefly. My ask of the commissioners is this. First and foremost, build policy and decisions and protections that make sense for the long-term viability of these communities and giving them opportunities to shape our own future, to understand and appreciate the individuality of each and every one of these communities in your county, to know our story, our experiences, and see what these companies and advocacy groups have failed to see. Hopefully with that, you will continue to see our determination, our resolve, and what brought us here tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Craig. We have Kent Rowe next and Mick Roush on deck. Good evening, Kent.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good to see you all once again. We're here once again struggling for our health, well-being, and economic justice for the citizens of Sedgwick County. I'm Dr. Kent Rowe, 3353 North 159th Street East, Wichita. Please allow the 12 to 20 watt ball of neuronal mass, I brought my own data center here, inside my skull to train myself as to how to adapt to impending water deprivation, poisoned air, and incessant maddening noise pollution emanating from an industrial brain whose ultimate purpose is to make money for trillionaires. I use the word T for T-Rex, the dinosaur which eats whatever sentient beings it finds tasty. The T-Rex here is a massive type of training data center that is the innovation Stargate hyperscale deconvolutional networks with layers and weights assigned to algorithms. And like a T-Rex, one cannot break the data load requirement in order to write weights to the memories of these servers. It must pounce within seconds at gigawatt scale, and the loads fluctuate dramatically. This is called ramp rate by systems electrical engineers, in which I have a background with. Thus far, our utility grid is woefully ill-equipped to handle peak demand management because of slow signal speed, lack of interconnection guidelines, and few smart inverters. Fast batteries, such as the Japanese lithium titanium oxide, fast cells can only export 1 megawatt per hour at best, which is beyond battery storage technology. Even if there is sufficient grid-scale generation, investor-owned utilities haven't conditioned the infrastructure according to the Grid-Wide Architectural Council. Quarterly reports and stockholder obligations have led to underinvestment in control systems in the power domain, energy domain, frequency domain, as well as the transmission debacle. You get that? Transmission lines. Presently, our old infrastructure has 42% circuits will fail by the year 2030. We don't do anything. So enter the Predator T-Rex with its aeroderivative gas turbines that circle these data centers. These are jet engine modified rotating generating equipment with hush baffles, something some legislators in the Kansas House would like to install on me personally. The turbine assemblies are located on skids, thereby sidestepping permitting air, water, and noise pollution requirements. They're on skids. Siemens advertises this in their brochures. The trillionaire XAI SpaceX multi-gigawatt superclusters in South Memphis and Mississippi, vainly challenged by NAACP and Southern Environmental Law Centers, are least able to protect themselves. I suspect our own community is headed for a toilet to tap, as in many parts of drought-riddled Southwest. Hey, look at Big Springs, Texas right now, and other communities like that. They're out of water. We haven't even mentioned the fossil gas water necessary to quench the T-Rex required for the feedstock for these methane plants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kent. Mick Roush and Ross Omo on deck. Good evening, Mick.
Okay, I'm Mick Roush. I am the chairman of the Clear Creek Watershed District. It is our responsibility to conserve the water resources of the watershed, reduce soil erosion and prevent flood damage, and protect water quality. We are a taxing district, and if you live within the borders, you are assessed a tax. First, some facts about the watershed. The watershed starts a half mile south of 29th at 295th. To the west, it borders 311th to the west, and to the east, 199th, and ends up in the Nenasko River south of 95th Street. It's quite large, covers all or part of 72 sections of land. It includes the city of GP, the western edge of Goddard, and parts of 4 townships. There are numerous private wells and ponds used for drinking water and livestock watering, and there are also several private lakes, as well as Lake Afton, used for recreational purposes. Many of these wells and lakes are over 100 years old. The proposed GP site is in this watershed, and we are very concerned about the runoff from this site, as well as the possibility of contamination to the underground water supplying the farms and homeowners, as well as cities in this area. The surface runoff runs basically in a southerly direction, but the underground streams, or the veins, of which we're really worried about, run in a southeasterly direction, which heads towards the growing population center of the county. Because of the risk of water quality and soil erosion and increased runoff, the Clear Creek Watershed Board opposes the hyperscale data center development in our district. We recommend that the Sedgwick County Commission adopt the strictest possible to protect our natural resources from data center developments, and if an application is submitted for the Garden Plain site, we recommend that you deny it. If there's any questions, I'll stand for some questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Ross Omo, and on deck, John Heck. I'd like to take a point of privilege real quick and recognize a couple elected leaders other than our commission here. Justin Brewster, Hayesville City Council, Kevin Hammond, Mayor Garden Plain, any other local electeds here, please let me know. Anyways, appreciate everybody being here, so thank you. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Ross Omo, 18548 West 53rd Street, Colwich, Kansas. Good evening, commissioners. First, I want to thank you for hosting this town hall event. As you can see, you have many concerned constituents here before you tonight whose voices need to be heard. Tonight, I would like to dive a little deeper into the ways in which the data center entities have approached our rural landowners in securing these massive amounts of agricultural land. To say that this process is untrustworthy is an understatement. These companies send letters and meet with landowners in secretive manners, and in some cases push for landowners to sign NDAs. That way, when neighboring landowners want to inquire about what's happening, they are left in the dark to piece together for themselves the reality of the situation. A few examples of the questionable tactics used by these entities. You might as well just sign because your neighbor did and you don't want to be left out. This project will only be a couple small buildings. We have all the land we need and we can just eminent domain your section because of the utility infrastructure build out. Would you be interested in selling your property because of the data center that's going in across the road? We'll give you a good deal so you don't have to deal with it later. These are verbatim from landowners who refuse to sign an NDA and have not signed altogether and are still being pressured to sign over their land. Two additional points of discussion I want to hit tonight that are bred from these interactions between data center reps and landowners. One being the lack of transparency for the rest of the community affected by these. Do these landowners really know what they're getting into before being pressured to commit? Most would say absolutely not. I would ask, if hyperscale data centers are the next great thing for our community, why use these tactics? Why not be open with the community who will allegedly reap the rewards of their supposed money infusion? And the second point being property rights, which has been brought up quite a bit lately. As a landowner, if I agree to sell my property based on what I am being told is truth, and later find out that it's massively different and greatly impacts the rest of my community, is that a true property right agreement? Or have my rights been and since stolen from me by the way of a false sales pitch and a binding lease? Not only is that a violation to the landowner who made an agreement, it's a violation to the surrounding landowners whose property has been fundamentally changed and forever devalued. At what point in this process does a community's rights come into play? The Wichita-Sedgwick County Comprehensive Plan emphasizes compatibility between land uses and the importance of considering impacts on surrounding properties. Many of us here tonight are concerned that projects of this scale will have major impacts on neighboring landowners, who in turn have just as much right regarding their property as the property being sold to data centers. Appreciate the time to speak. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. John Heck and Jim Denning on deck.
Feet from the surface at this site. That is a bad location for a data center, as the risk of contamination of the aquifer is too great. Proponents.
My name is Jim Denning. I live near Mays, and I'm a landowner of land near Colwich, Kansas. My group and I are here to voice opposition to the proposed data centers. Rumors are that there are 10 to 12 proposed data center sites in Sedgwick County, Kansas. I have a friend who travels the country working with data center construction firsthand. He is intimately familiar with the process and shared his observations below, from purchasing the first site to the ultimate development of data center clusters. Typically, a tech company covertly through an agent offers an exorbitant amount of money to carefully selected landowners. A non-disclosure agreement is complete. The template, infrastructure, and precedent has been set. Additional data centers don't have to blaze the trail, so they cluster around the first one. The second data center has less of a headwind to get started, then a third, and so on. My friend, when he was working at a data center in Ohio, said he could see several data centers from his window. He also said that dust from continuous construction was an issue. Each additional data center takes 4 to 6 years to complete, so it could take many years to complete the data center cluster. Road conditions will be an issue, and road maintenance will be expensive, for which we all pay. Data centers generate a lot of heat, which must be dealt with. They typically use a closed-loop cooling system or an open-loop cooling system. Noise from the closed-loop system is an issue, and the liquid must be flushed periodically. Flushing the liquid into a municipal system can easily overload the system. Some data centers flush into a holding pond for evaporation, which leaves toxic chemicals. Open loop systems demand a constant large supply of water, which adds pressure to the Wichita metropolitan area water sources of Cheney Lake and the Equus Beds aquifer. Trying to mitigate their noise, data centers install bizarre, very tall screen walls around the data center, which adds to the undesirable visual effect. So my group and I register our opposition to the proposed data centers and subsequent data center clusters for these reasons. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jennifer Connley and Andrew Nave on deck. Good evening, Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? I won't take up as much time as my honey. I just have a couple of things to say. The first thing is what people haven't mentioned tonight is where this energy is going to come from. Are we going to have it come from Evergy? Are we having those two gas plants that we're having built with 705 megawatts of energy being used for these data centers, or is it going to go to the people? Who's going to pay for it? I know they have what they call a tariff, which is just a different form of they'll have to pay for their energy, which is a higher rate of energy price for that particular data center. But the problem with that is they will do the build out to the data centers, but who pays for those natural gas plants? Who will be paying for those? Will it be the people in this room? I think that's the way it goes. And as soon as they break ground on those, we pay for them. And that's the way the rules are set up nowadays. So you get to pay for part of that data center being built whether you want to or not. And then how is the energy? Any place where they've had energy for data centers before has always brought up the price of energy for our area. So that's something to think about it. And if you're using a natural gas plant, they use for a 100 megawatt system, they're going to use about 1,200,000 gallons of water a day for that natural gas plant. Now that might be okay if it's an industry that's going to bring a lot of jobs, but this is not an industry that's going to bring a lot of jobs. So let's take that into a big consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Andrew Nave, and up on deck, Joan Omo.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for this evening, and I appreciate everyone being here tonight. My name is Andrew Nave, and I'm with the Greater Wichita Partnership. We're at 505 East Douglas Avenue, and the Regional Economic Development Organization for Sedgwick County. I know this is a controversial subject and a weighty conversation, to be sure. I really appreciate the public and the community's engagement on this. This is a tough conversation that we're having as a community, but economic development can be tough sometimes. Economic development is not always a straight line or a short path. Sometimes these projects, sometimes these opportunities take a winding path. And so I wanted to provide just a little bit of a perspective of what the data center industry could do for Sedgwick County and for our region. The data center industry represents an opportunity to support the expansion of our growing technology sector while also creating very high-wage jobs and generating significant tax revenues that strengthen the local tax base and fund local services. Nationally, each data center supports roughly 6 additional jobs across the broader economy. We have a small presence.
Please be respectful, folks.
We have a small presence of data centers in our region today, but we lag behind many peers, cities, and surrounding states in that concentration. In a market roughly Wichita's size, we have about 1/3 of the occupations in computer science and network engineering that a region and a city our size should have, lagging far behind Kansas City, Omaha, Tulsa, and other markets. I worry about, and I think about as a father with my kids graduating, a son getting ready to go to Wichita State University, and I don't know that he's going to go into the computer science field, but I worry about those graduates of Wichita State, Newman, and friends that are in the computer science field that want to work in the data center industry, and many of those have to leave our market today to work in that industry. In the future, we need to find opportunities for the growing tech sector for our graduates and our students in this community. The Greater Wichita Partnership, as an economic development organization, aims to ensure that the region can retain and attract jobs and capital investment. Our role is to provide information, conduct economic analysis, and help facilitate conversations about investment that can improve this region. Sedgwick County's quality of life has long been shaped by businesses that invest here and people that choose to build their careers here. We appreciate the Commission's thoughtful and prudent approach. We can convey that the data center opportunities that we're familiar with are trying to do the same. They are gathering their data, they are determining many details and aspects of very complex projects while also balancing many projects around the country. They are working hard to bring forward a full picture to this community, to the residents, and to you as commissioners. We anticipate that soon they will be able to ready to share some of that picture. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Andrew. Joan. Everyone's opinion is important, folks. Joan Omo and Abby Lubers on deck.
Joan Omo, 5537 North 183rd Street West, Colwich, Kansas. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'd like to address an issue that directly affects our community's safety, traffic congestion, and the risks it creates, especially for our high school drivers, during the construction of a hyperscale data center. The proposed site at 53rd and 199th is the direct route to Andale High School for students in Colwich and surrounding areas, and the proposed site at 21st and 295th is a direct route to Garden Plain High School. Major construction projects bring a significant increase in heavy truck traffic. Semi-trucks hauling equipment, materials, and construction supplies travel in and out of the site throughout the day. The safety risks this creates are very real for the people who use these roads every day. On the roads surrounding Holly Ridge, Louisiana, as an example, which has a population less than 2,000 persons, vehicle crashes are up 600%. There were 64 crashes between January and September of 2025, compared to 9 in all of 2024. A traffic count taken near Holly Ridge Elementary in February 2022 recorded 1,800 vehicles in one day. In July of 2025, during Meta's data center construction, the count climbed to 5,200 vehicles in that same spot, despite no school traffic due to summer break. Of grave concern are our high school students, many being new drivers. They are still developing the experience and judgment needed to safely navigate busy roads. When you combine inexperienced drivers with narrow rural roads, increased semi-truck traffic, construction vehicles entering and exiting work sites, and frequent slowdowns or sudden stops, the potential for accidents rises dramatically. Construction traffic can create bottlenecks, long backups at intersections, and unpredictable traffic patterns. School commuters who are used to consistent travel times may suddenly find themselves rushing to make it to class on time. That pressure can lead to risky driving decisions, speeding, unsafe passing, or distracted driving, all of which increase the likelihood of crashes. Our community has a responsibility to ensure that young drivers, our children and our grandchildren, can travel to and from school safely. Construction planning must recognize that reality and prioritize safety from the beginning. Thank you for your time and for considering the impact these decisions have on our students and our families who depend on these roads every single day.
Thanks, Joan.
Thank you.
Abby Lubers and McCrae Doll on deck. Good evening, Abby.
Good evening.
Thanks for being here.
Hi, Commissioners. Thank you for the time to speak tonight. My name is Abby Lubers. I am a 6th grade student in the Renwick District. I am here to discuss my concerns regarding the hyperscale data center activity. When I asked my dad if I was allowed to speak tonight, he made sure to remind me that this is America. Anyone can speak. It's a constitutional right. Earlier this year, I was voted to student council to represent my class and help the school in future classes. I enjoy being on student council and have been disappointed at the lack of kids' engagement sixth graders are allowed to have. Unfortunately, sometimes kids aren't taken seriously. But what is serious is what's happening in our Renwick area. I find what's going on in our area to be highly important. I can see it in everyone, the students, the teachers, the administrators, the parents. The endless meetings and conversations to figure out what is going on and how do we protect ourselves to get others to understand these risks. One of those risks that I'm concerned about is called hyperscale data center clustering. When one of these gets put in, it is highly likely additional sites follow in the area in the form of new data centers, new campuses, or expansions. This is happening so fast in so many areas that many are unaware. It's not just in Virginia or Arizona, but we now see it in places like Iowa, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas, places just like ours. As the graduating class of 2032, we are concerned about this risk, among many others. It's a real threat because it's happening and it's misunderstood. Other communities have helped make sure that we learn from their mistakes, that the time to speak up is not after the application, not after the first data center goes in, not after the new campus announcement. The time to speak up and the time to speak out is now. I'm not here to tell you to keep data centers out of Sedgwick County forever, but I am here to suggest, as someone representing a growing school district and a community's way of life, that there seems so much more obvious solutions and approaches than how these are being pursued right now. We stand with the Renwick School Board in their letter of opposition. We stand with those here listening tonight, and we stand for our future. Thank you for the time to speak.
Abby. Abby, thank you very much for speaking. I actually have a daughter that's a fifth grader that reached out to me to ask who she could talk to about the no-cell bell-to-bell, so I appreciate you standing up tonight and speaking. McCrae Doll and Daryl Bugner on deck. Good evening.
So they touched on some of the points that I'm going to talk about, so I won't repeat those. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is McCrae Doll. I'm here to talk to you about our concerns with the data centers near our schools. The data centers are being pursued in the Renwick School District. The district contains over 2,000 students, not including two schools, St. Joe Oast and JP2. The closest school to this hyperscale data center is St. Joe Oast, K-8 school, located barely, 2.4 miles from the site. Many families that live and will someday live directly around the proposed area. St. Joe has seen a 33% increase in enrollment in the last 4 years alone. The school is even planning to expand in the coming years to accommodate the growth. During the summer, St. Joe Oast hosted its TUIS training, bringing 130 kids to the area. The Colwich School enrollment is up substantially, up 20%, and that's only in the last 2 years. In addition to this, that 20% increase for Colwich does not even include the independent liberal arts school started in the town 4 years ago, and it has already outgrown its current infrastructure. Renwick is growing. More than half of the public schools in the county, state, and country are actually slowly losing enrollment. These schools, along with those in the Renwick district, are able to flourish because of the support not only from the parents but also because of the community. The proposed hyperscale data center will only take away not only agricultural land but potential sites for future homes in the community. It'll also drive away potential families from wanting to join our community. These data centers will run 24/7, and if not using grid power, they will rely on diesel generators to supply it. According to the World Resource Institute, diesel-fueled backup generators also release harmful air pollutants, including fine particulate matter and nitrogen oxide, linked to respiratory disease, heart disease, asthma, and other serious health risks. Although these generators are only being used during emergencies, they have outsized health impacts, emitting 200 to 600 times more nitrogen oxide than natural gas plants. One analysis in Virginia estimated that even limited backup generator use could already be associated with nearly $300 million in annual public health costs and 14,000 asthma-related health impacts across multiple states. Again, the data center at 21st and 295th will be within 5 miles of 4 different schools. She talked about the construction, so I don't need to talk about that. The enrollment is a sign of community health. Our enrollment is up, the population is up and continually growing. New homes are continually being built. Property taxes are up. We don't need help from secretive companies that would change who we are. This isn't something that we are willing to risk. Our values align with Sedgwick County's. We want to hold ourselves to the highest standard of ethical conduct. We also want to work together for the good of the public. We don't feel that a hyperscale data center this close to multiple schools is what our county needs. As a parent, this information doesn't help me sleep at night, but thankfully my mattress from the Mattress Hub does. Thank you for your time to listen. We appreciate what you guys do for our county, and please know that we are continually praying for you guys.
Thank you very much. Daryl Bugner and Jennifer Bugner on deck. Good evening, Daryl.
Good evening. How are you? My name is Daryl Bugner. I live at Ground Zero with the Garden Plain Center right across the road from where it's proposed being built. The creek originates at just west of 295th Street West and north of 29th Street North. It runs right down the middle of my field and continues downstream and ends up in the Wichita area and beyond. Builders of data centers will say that they'll build structures to stop erosion, which sounds great in theory. However, they won't be able to stop the runoff during the construction phase, and this could be a 2, 3, 4 year process just for one building. All it takes is 1 2-inch rainfall to start the erosion process and begin to move topsoil. Once erosion cut begins, it's hard to stop and will take a lot of time and money to repair. The top foot of the soil is where the majority of the nutrients are for crops. You move that top soil and erode it, you've destroyed the productivity of that soil for years to come. Besides the initial very large building, there are 2 additional buildings proposed on the Garden Plain site. These buildings will have 20 to 40 acres under the roof, creating an enormous amount of runoff during a 2-inch rainfall, which has happened quite often in the last year. February 14th of this year, the Garden Plain site had 4 inches plus. That was a lot of rain. Again, the builders say they have plans of dealing with water coming off the roofs after commissioning. Again, these buildings are not going to be constructed overnight, so we're looking at a year or 2 years of construction before they get a roof over it possibly. During the construction phase, one rainfall event can send, I say thousands, it's probably millions of water downstream, damaging terraces and fields and farms downstream. Most fields aren't designed for that much water flow, so it's going to damage a lot of fields possibly. Another major concern is the hazard of sending construction debris and potential chemicals downstream. Once that happens, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. It's done gone. The Endo-Colwich site soils aren't quite as erodible as ours in Garden Plain, but the same concerns exist. Moving heavy equipment up and down the roads is going to tear them down and make them unusable for anything except heavy construction use. After the roads are damaged and weakened, a heavy rainfall will cause the roads to wash out and erode. This again will take a lot of time and money to repair. I'm close to done. Yep. In conclusion, I'd ask that there be thorough analysis of soils, water movement, any potential hazards regarding construction materials and on-site chemicals before any construction begins, and make those results available to the public. This is why a moratorium or a delay in this whole process is needed. We ask you to take your time, do your due diligence. Your decisions will forever affect Sedgwick County, the entire farming community, and the families in western Sedgwick County, my neighborhood, that call it home. Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. Jennifer Bugner and Pat Krauss on deck.
Hello.
Hi,
I feel like
Jennifer.
we need to put you on my Christmas card list. I've seen you all so much lately. Well, I'm Jennifer Bugner. I live at 29310 West, 29th Street North, as Daryl said, at Ground Zero, right across the road from projected data center sites. So I'm going to talk about aesthetics tonight. So that's a new one. So we haven't reached on that yet, but I got to put my spectacles on so I can see what I'm reading, all right? All right, the aesthetics of a hyperscale data center, like those built by Google, are usually driven for more function, security, and efficiency rather than traditional agricultural beauty. Massive minimalist buildings. Hyperscale data centers are typically very large rectangular structures with a minimalist appearance. Visual traits, windowless walls, long flat roof lines, Simple geometric shapes, natural industrial colors, white, gray, beige. The buildings are often resemble large warehouses or distribution centers, but usually with fewer doors or windows. Industrial infrastructure or part of the landscape. A large part of the visible design is actually cooling and electrical infrastructure. Common visible elements, large cooling towers or chillers, rows of backup diesel generators, electrical substations, ventilation louvers along the walls. These components give hyperscale data centers a heavy industrial aesthetic. Security-oriented design. Because they house critical digital infrastructure, security is a viable part of the aesthetic. Typical features: tall, perimeter fencing, controlled entry gates, security cameras and lighting, berms or landscaping buffers. Many companies try to soften the look with landscaping, but the security campus feel it is still obvious. Companies like Google often keep branding minimal. You might see a small company logo, color accents, a visitor entrance with modern architecture, but most of the campus remains visually understated. Campus style layout. Hyperscale facilities are usually built as multiple buildings across a large site. Typical campus elements: multiple identical server buildings, separate electrical substations, water infrastructure, internal service roads, stormwater ponds. From above, they often look like repeating modular blocks. Attempts at community-friendly design. They try to use earth tone facades, decorative metal panels, tree buffers, art walls or murals, architectural screening for generators, but the scale still dominates the visual experience. What many residents notice with the hyperscale facilities are built near homes or farmland. Residents notice the sheer scale of the buildings, so how tall are these really going to be? The constant low mechanical hum, night lighting, large equipment yards. Even when landscaping is added, the facility can visually feel more like industrial infrastructure than a traditional commercial building. An interesting fact: many hyperscale facilities are over 500,000 to 1 million square feet, and campuses can reach hundreds of acres. That's all I got. Thank you.
Patrick Krauss and Lori Krauss on deck.
Evening, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Krauss, 19059 West 53rd Street, Colwich. I'm going to talk about the enormous amount of power that data centers use and how this is driving up electric bills for households all across the country. So here are some recent news articles. From Harvard Law Review last September: the public is paying for the energy infrastructure used to power big tech. From Bloomberg, also last September: AI data centers are sending power bills soaring. From CNBC, Goldman Sachs last month: electricity prices will keep rising on data center demand. I mean, I've got a million of these. I could go on the full 3 minutes, but I'm going to move on. Even President Trump, in his State of the Union speech a few weeks ago, acknowledged that data centers are contributing to higher electric prices. So why are electric bills going up? It's because utilities are investing billions and billions of dollars in a new costly infrastructure upgrades specifically for data centers, and these costs are being passed directly on to residential customers. Consumer Reports, in an article yesterday, noted that while many large tech companies have pledged to pay their own, those commitments often lack transparency, accountability, and meaningful mechanisms to protect consumers from high costs. Now, I will acknowledge that Kansas did pass 2 laws last year to help protect taxpayers from higher electric bills due to data centers. Senate Bill 98 prohibits public utilities from granting data centers their standard economic discounted rates, and the KCC approved a new large load tariff rule, which are designed to help prevent costs from being passed on to residential customers. So while both of these laws' intent is good, the devil's in the details on how these get administered. Big tech is good at what they do, and in communities across the U.S., their companies are still making deals behind closed doors, signing NDAs with local officials and providers, and lobbying behind the scenes in state houses. So what are we asking for to be done to help address these higher electric prices? Well, we would like transparency from the energy providers regarding plans to how data centers are going to be serviced and any future expansion or contraction. We'd like transparency from data centers on resource consumption. For years, tech companies have pushed back against even basic transparency around their data centers' resource usage. Energy and water consumption figures are often categorized as proprietary information or trade secrets by tech companies, with local officials prohibited from disclosing the information due to non-disclosure agreements. require purchase power agreements be submitted for review before any applications for data centers are accepted, again to make sure consumers are protected. KPIs such as power usage effectiveness and other metrics should be put in place. And when service is cut in periods of high consumption or power disruption, who gets cut first? There has been a growing trend to allow data centers to cut power consumption during shortages, but the trade-off is then they will use on-site generators to power their own operations, and that creates many other problems. I'm almost done. Okay. Some information that we have received shows that one of the proposed sites could be a massive 1 gigawatt data center. In layman's terms, that's enough power for 750,000 to 1 million homes. So in comparison, Sedgwick County has approximately 230,000 housing units, so this one data center could use 3 to 4 times the amount of electricity used as in all the homes in Sedgwick County. So even if this one data center is built, what does this do to our service reliability and ability to service any future developments in our community? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Patrick. Lori Krauss and Jordan Unles on deck.
My name is Lori Krauss. Thank you, Commissioners. My address is 19059 West 53rd Street North in Colwich. I am here to address something that I don't think has been talked about tonight, and that is, especially in Western Sedgwick County, but for all of Sedgwick County, and that is the future of war, drones bombing data centers. That is not my statement. That is actually a bold headline in an article published just last week in the New Yorker. This article came about as a result of the Iranian attack on UAE and Bahrain on March 1st, where 3 data centers operated by the Amazon Web Services, most likely by drones, led to service outages and knocked off services to the United States Pentagon and their intelligence operations. In the U.S., data centers exist within several critical sectors as defined by the Department of Homeland Security, and they are rapidly emerging as strategic assets and also prime targets. In 2022, the Pentagon awarded a $9 billion contract to Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Oracle to run cloud services at every classification within the U.S. military, meaning the boundary between civilian cloud computing and military operations within the same physical structures of these data centers, especially hyperscale, has largely vanished. They are now one and the same in each data center combined. This means that attacks on these facilities can have immediate military consequences, and if you read the Eagle yesterday, the Los Angeles Times reported just that federal authorities are warning of retaliatory strikes on American soil using sleeper cells. Historically, the United States has always strategically taken their time to position and tailor the physical security of large-scale infrastructure. Today, however, these installations must think outside the box. Drones and unmanned systems pose a threat as providing surveillance and methods of attack for both domestic and non-state terrorism. One example is the case in 2021 of a plot to blow up an Amazon data center in Virginia, which was thankfully stopped before it could happen. So how does this affect us in Sedgwick County? That's the question. As of today, hyperscale data centers in rural areas are increasingly identified by the Department of Homeland Security as soft targets for terrorist attacks because these facilities are often placed in somewhat remote areas for power and cost benefits and cheap land. They are vulnerable because they are largely unprotected. And to be frank, Wichita is an aviation hub and home to McConnell Air Force Base, which houses key units that are engaged in worldwide cyberspace operations and reconnaissance. These huge infrastructures, which we now know are dual use, would be stretching out for miles, tapping into large electrical grids, oftentimes having their own power plants, loaded with up to 150 diesel generators that are the size of semi-trucks with large cooling towers, and it would be all sitting on top of the major water source for over 500,000 people. There's no one to police any type, I'm almost done, no one type to police any or drone or private planes that could cause major damage or worse to the area, and they absolutely do not belong in a populous area as ours. This conversation needs to happen now before an attack in rural America happens. Military workloads need to be segregated from civilian cloud infrastructure and placed on DoD land as commissioned by President Trump, his executive order from last July, or placed in a more secure area, not rural. The families living next to these facilities and the residents of Sedgwick County did not agree to live next to military targets. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Jordan Unles and Joe Shear on deck. How you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing well. I wanted to give a little context to everybody in the room just on kind of how Kansas and Sedgwick County got in this situation in the first place. So bear with me here. The Kansas Economic Outlook Conference was held on October 2nd, 2025. So in that conference, it was highlighted that the state of Kansas is being targeted as a laboratory for the World Economic Forum's plans, which include transforming farmland into a tech-driven economy with a focus on data centers. The World Economic Forum has been discussing the state of Kansas in relation to data centers as part of its strategy for remobilizing globalization. In that same conference, you heard Harvard's Mark Esposito, a World Economic Forum insider, speak glowingly about how rare of a jewel Kansas is. More rare and unique than states like California and Texas even. According to him, an abundance of water, power, cheap ground, and little to no restrictions created the perfect situation for tech giants to plant their digital roots in our rural soil. Their words, not mine. Now, several speakers this evening will or have refuted Mr. Esposito's claims of the abundance of water and power, but that isn't what I want to discuss. What I want to present to the Commission is if Kansas is in fact the rarest of jewels for these trillion-dollar tech companies, why are we the ones who are bending over backwards to accommodate them? Last year, Kansas Senate Bill 98, SB 98, was adopted, establishing a 20-year, 100% state and local tax exemption, which includes land, building, equipment, engineering, and labor. Meaning the only way we stand a chance of making any money off these hyperscale facilities is through property taxes. However, as you well know, these trillion-dollar companies never pay their actual tax bill. They will file a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes, so they can throw pennies to the counties that they are sucking dry. Now, it is unfortunate that your higher-ups at the state level have already pulled the rug on any taxes from the build of these tens of billions of dollar projects, so now the burden and responsibility falls to you. You have the opportunity here to completely change the way that these companies do business in this state. If we are the rarest of jewels that they themselves said, they should pay dearly for the opportunity to do business with us, not the other way around. These companies have stated openly in multiple discussions, several discussions I'm sure with all of you, that money is no issue, that they're happy to pay whatever they need to get this done. So literally straight from the horse's mouth, they are ready to pay any amount. So by placing serious restrictions on where, how, and when they get to play ball in Sedgwick County and making them pay their share of property taxes, just like every single one of us, yourselves included, and not some weak pilot, we could actually get a serious benefit, not only to Sedgwick County, but to the entire state. The weight of responsibility in an elected official is not something that should be taken lightly, and I don't envy you this decision. But make no mistake, how you decide to handle these data centers will have a profound effect on what our state looks like moving forward. Once Pandora's box is opened, there will be no going back. You'll either have to explain for the remainder of your life that you completely changed the face of Sedgwick County, Kansas for the better, or that you're responsible for the complete breakdown of everything that we hold dear. Good luck. God bless. God bless America.
Thanks, Jordan. Joe Shear and Bruce Meyer on deck. I do want to tell you guys, we're an hour in, and we're on speaker 19 of 57, so we're on like page 2 of 8. So we'll probably have to shorten after this, probably shorten it down to 2 minutes, or we're going to be up past County Manager Tom Stoll's bedtime. So.
Good evening, Chairman. Good to see you guys again. This is regarding data centers in West Sedgwick County. My name is Joe Shear. I live on 19129 West 53rd Street, North Colwich. Questions are: how are we monitoring water, power, generator pollution, light pollution, traffic, infrastructure, county roads? What types of comprehensive plan would we put in place with a contingency plan policies and clear expectations when performance guidelines, and most important, an emergency action plan? Criteria protects the citizens. Joan talked earlier about Louisiana, Holly Ridge, Louisiana, with traffic accidents tripling in 9 months. One of the non-local residents contractor had an expired driver's license, not even from a different country. This alarms me in multiple avenues on who are these companies bringing in our communities, who's vending these employees. Holly Ridge is about 2,000 residents with 2-lane county roads are equal to ours. We want to stress again when determining what industrial area, not residential areas, with 4 lanes, essential to have keeping the county roads safe. With hyperscales, data centers intentionally build in rural areas because land as power is cheap. But rural roads often have 2 lanes, narrow shoulders, sharp turns, and few traffic signals, running the risk of high accident rates. Emergency access can become a serious challenge at large data centers, especially when accidents occur on or near roads serving the project. Because these sites often generate heavy traffic use of temporary work zones, DO planners must carefully manage how fire emergency systems and policies reach the scene quickly. After article stating the data centers in rural areas with infrastructure and emergency resources may be limited. Example, the Columbus Dispatch, the first responders in the county, handled 84 emergency calls related to 2 data centers. Firefighters reported that security protocols can delay entry while waiting for authorization to enter the facility. These also stated these facilities are far more complicated than normal building fires. Why? Safety becomes backup generators, battery systems, and restricted areas for sensitive electrical components. When thousands of these construction vehicles start using these county roads, the county infrastructure will become overwhelmed. Expect many delays in all aspects. In summary, documented traffic accidents near data centers, construction sites have increased because of massive truck traffic, rural roads not designated for industrial vehicles, sudden surges in workers, commuters, 1,500 to 2,000 contractors daily to and from work, dangerous work zone and conditions, driver fatigue, shift fatigue. We got to also look after our farmers. We take care of them during harvest. Our young drivers going back and forth to Andale, as Joan said. These are just a few reasons data centers need to be construction in industrial areas, not rural townships. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Bruce Meyer and John Young on deck. Good evening, Bruce.
Good evening. Thank you guys for having this. We really appreciate it. Fast and dirty. I've got stuff from data from the USGS, the EPA, the Water Research Foundation, and the General Accounting Office. 40 states expect water shortages not related to drought. That's from the General Accounting Office. The average American home uses 300 gallons of water a day. So if you break that out, that comes out to about 109,000 gallons a year. Okay. The aquifers in this, 21 of the 37 aquifers in this country are below sustainability, and that's from the GAO and the EPA. The lower water levels can contribute to higher concentration of human and natural pollutants, and that's from the EPA. If you took the 12,000 gallons that I talked about and you took it times 40 homes, you would have 4,380,000 gallons. And that's in a 1 year period. Some of these buildings that they're talking about building, in my understanding, are using millions and millions of gallons. Okay, and you're only going to get so much tax from that unit. Okay, I think 40 homes would provide a lot more tax benefits to the people of Sedgwick County, not counting all the pollution and all the environmental stuff that may go on with this stuff. And if they do a closed loop circuit on the cooling rather than water towers, that cooling, the millions of gallons they're going to use, that has to go somewhere. And everybody knows that in order to make water viable, if it comes in with
2 parts here of bad stuff. When it leaves, it has to be at less than 2 parts or less. It has to be 2 parts or less. Okay, are we going to be able to do that with the types of chemicals that they're going to be using? We don't know what they're going to be using in that because of the secrecy that's going on. I appreciate your time, and I'll give the rest up to somebody who's a lot more articulate than me. Thank you.
John Young and Deanna Helton on deck.
Thank you for the
Thanks, John.
opportunity. My name is John Young. I live at 4520 South 375th in Cheney. I am also with Leading Kansas, an organization that's demanding transparency from our elected leaders. And I won't get into too much detail. I certainly reiterate everybody else's comments. I've been there. My wife and I recently moved from the Reno, Nevada area to the Cheney area. We have lived through the construction of data centers. We know what it's like, so rather than get on a long spiel about it, everybody can do a web search for the Reno Tahoe Industrial Center. Look up Greenlink at NV Energy, where the ratepayers paid for that new infrastructure, not the data centers. And also, we talk about power supply and power generation and the offsite effects from that for these data centers. The state of Kansas also, and the federal government, recently authorized a pilot plant in Parsons, Kansas, to bury nuclear reactors in deep boreholes. Their primary customer base are data centers. Their name is Deep Isolation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Deanna Helton and Ron Gibbons on deck. Good evening, Deanna.
I have to break it down a little bit. I'm a little short. Sorry. Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Deanna Helton, and I live at 30,400 West 21st Street, North Garden Plain. This proposed data center will be just a half a mile east of our home. My request to you all is to put it in writing that at this data center and any storage that comes with it be put in an industrial area. My husband and I have made it to most of your meetings, and we've watched online due to prior engagements. I would like to say thank you to the County Commissioner, especially Mrs. Wise, for coming to Andale this morning. It shows immense importance that you are getting involved in our areas and that you represent. To all of you County Commissioners, thank you for listening to all of the facts and the information that has been brought to your group. I know that this is not easy, and I know that you've gotten millions of emails and tons of phone calls, and your perseverance through it all is great. Thank you. I heard yesterday from Commissioner Beatty that he has a big heart for children with developmental needs and made a proclamation yesterday with all of you. Now, why do I bring that up? First off, it made this mama's heart incredibly happy. You show that these guys matter. I hold before you Gianna. She is 2 months old. She was diagnosed with trisomy 21 at birth. I bring up her diagnosis because she will have a tough road ahead with learning and developing, which doctors here in Wichita and in Kansas City have broken it all down to us. As I started looking into the data center after coming home during her 33-day at the NICU stay, I learned about a senior industrial hygienist and environmental health specialist, Kristen Megan Kelly, who explained how our human health will become affected by this data center, being near communities like ours. You've been told about how many schools are in our area, and they're just a few miles from this proposed site. These data centers have caused chronic exposure that the electronic infrastructures exposed to children and pregnant women have been known to cause sleep deprivation, headaches, stress responses, and chronic fatigue. Not only that, but have also caused developmental learning issues for those that are still developing cognitively, which means the location of these data centers strongly matters. If this proposed data center goes in, this would cause massive delays for her already rigorous weekly doctor schedules. Gianna has 4 small holes in her heart that are being monitored by a cardiologist in Wichita. Rainbows United here in Wichita comes right to our house every 2 weeks to work with her. This could all become delayed because of this construction. I would rather the studies on our children not be the forefront for other rural communities facing these data centers and battery storage buildings. Too much of this exposure is going to be on the children of St. Mark's, Colwich, Andale, Garden Plain, and St. Joe Oast. along with the smallest of babies like Gianna. She is already facing a challenging time ahead, and I wish that we not add to this by allowing these data centers in our area and that the land around us not be rezoned for them.
Thank you, Deanna. Ron Gibbons and Mike Beatson on deck. Good evening, Ron.
Hello. Ron Gibbons, 421 Periwinkle, Garden Plain. Different perspective. I've lived most of my adult life in Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie, Pennsylvania, they put their industry and industrial parks on the Great Lakes. This is the Great Plains. This is not the Great Lakes. So all industry had to be on the Great Lakes where there's a lot of water. We have, the residential has to have 10 acres per house to make sure the water table is stable. And here I see housing exploding around here. We had 250 inches of snow a year. That's 24 feet of snow. We have 3 months of rain in Pennsylvania. We have trees to hold the water in, the water table. How shocked I was to move here in October of last year, a year ago October, and I could walk, literally walk across the Arkansas River without getting wet. The reservoir was 13 feet below what it should have been, down 13 feet. You have, what, 6 inches of snow this year? You have how much rain? You don't have 3 months of rain. You aren't getting enough water in the water, testing it and putting industry where it belongs, not on prime farmland. Then you're going to have a problem. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ron. Mike Beatson and Josh Aller on deck. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Mike Beatson, I live in St. Mark. As I've told you before, I worked 35 years with a large chemical company around the world and worked in all these hazardous sites and plants and that. And this is a big plant. There's been a lot of good stuff talked tonight. I'm just going to kind of hit real quickly a thought, and that is, one of the things, you've got the opportunity to take charge and challenge this industry to change and how they do things. Industry will not change unless you really challenge them. So far, people challenged on power and sharing cost. Water, noise, they're making changes. They're bringing in new technology coming back here too. One of the things that I have a lot of problem with in running is the amount of generators they're talking about it. So I've done some research, as you know. And so an application that was put in February is a facility in Indiana, Monroe Township, 179 generators. 166 of them are 4,000 horsepower diesel generators, diesel engines that drive the generators. Since they're emergency generators, they are exempt, as you've heard tonight, from certain rules. And so they really don't have any abatement on them. They don't have any things that will remove particulates. So I did the math using their application. You can go through 177 pages and look at it. But basically, for 84 hours is all they asked to run a year. But they'll be permitted, if they had to go to 500. But 84 hours a year, they'll put out 32 tons of particulates. And that's the small stuff, asthma and all that. Diesels, they have a problem. They put out 237 tons of NOx. Now remember, this is only in 3.5 days. And I'm not going to go any more into generators because you've had a lot of that tonight. But the fact of the matter is, they will burn if they were all running, if they had to, and they're going to generate 450 megawatts is what their application. They'll burn 35,000 gallons of diesel an hour. And they have a storage of 1 million, and they'll burn through that in 27 days. So my point is, you have a chance to dictate to them versus them dictating to us. And by that, you will reduce footprint, you reduce air pollution, you reduce the demands they will put on it and hold them accountable to it. And so this is why you keep hearing me say, take your time, let's do it right, because this is the next 20 years you're setting the stage for. So look forward to working with you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Josh Aller and Christina Jackson on deck. Evening, Josh.
Good evening. My name is Josh Aller, 26190 West 37th Street. My wife and I are raising our 5 children in a home just a mile as a crow flies from the proposed Garden Plain site. My kids also attend school a few miles away at St. Joe Oast. I have a huge number of concerns about this, but the one I want to speak about is the noise. I personally have worked on, repaired, or built new some of the largest infrastructure in this county, from industrial sites to the largest municipal utilities to the major highways I've been involved. As I stated, the noise is one of my main concerns with the entire data center idea, but not just the noise that comes from construction, but the amount of noise that this plant will pollute our area with after it's complete and running. I've done quite a bit of research on sound pollution, but I'm not going to dive into the details this time. Being in Sedgwick County and considering its constant water volume concerns, I'm fairly confident that this data center will go with the closed loop cooling method. This is great for water consumption, but unfortunately that comes at a cost of electrical energy demands drastically increasing. And one reason for this electrical demand increase is because of the fans required to do the closed loop cooling. More fans equals more noise. Also, with the electrical demand comes the need for more backup generators. They'll state that these generators are only needed for emergency outages, but that's false. These things will regularly need to run for maintenance reasons. For my research, it can take around 30 to 40 generators to cover the need for a 100 megawatt data center, and the rumor that the one going in Garden Plain is 10 times that size. That'd be over 300 generators on this site alone. With maintenance requirements and following most standard operating procedures, there'll be generators running constantly. Pair that with the sound created by the cooling fans and the other equipment, it'll make for a constant roar coming off of this place. That's just the sound that we can hear. There are a lot of studies about the effects of what's called infrasound. Infrasound is a sound wave that is created by these data centers and sent out into the atmosphere. However, they're at a frequency that's not detectable by our ears. Infrasound can cause major health concerns for humans and other animal species. Things like headaches, disrupted sleep, cognitive performance, cardiovascular issues, stress, and the list can go on. My concern is the style and quality of life that I want my family to have, the type of life that everybody in this area strives to have, a style of life that at my home we dreamed about for over a decade until we finally had the means to make it come true. A style of life that the people across the entire county long for, and they pay extra for it. I truly do have the faith in the 5 of you, though. I have faith that you will uphold the oath that you took and that you will protect my family's way of life. I also have faith in God above. I have faith that He will guide your team through this very difficult position that you were put in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Christina Jackson and Holly Martin on deck. And I might remind everybody, if you guys can try to get as close to that beeper as you can, because we're still going to run way over. So appreciate any help you guys can give with that.
Hi.
Good evening.
I'm Christina Jackson, 2307 North Inwood Circle, so 21st and Rock Road. One of the things I would like to talk about with temp workers is there's so many of them that they cause rent to rise. If there's a problem with housing, where are all these workers going to live? What they've shown is that it drives up rent costs, which pushes out the residents of these towns because they can no longer afford to pay. And then when those temporary workers leave, it's kind of a ghost town. So there is a problem with where are all these workers going to stay while they're building this. When you have a 40,000 square foot facility, you'll have about 40 permanent workers. A 100,000 square foot facility has about 100 people. So long term, you're not talking a lot of jobs here. 40 people, and a lot of those can be the subcontractors who are doing janitorial work. So you're talking 15, 20 bucks an hour maybe. So the high-paying job that someone mentioned earlier, you might have a couple of those, 10 in a 40,000 square foot facility. So that's another problem. I read about a county in Virginia, they had problems with the gas generators, and the county said it's now working to rewrite its zoning rules for data centers to categorize base load power generation so that they can have more stringent rules. I don't know if that's something you guys, but this county realized that they didn't have any rules for the generators, and that was something that helped with that, so they can be more stringent rules. if that helps. And then my one other thing is that these are going to start being built in space. Within 10 years, they're hoping to build them in space, and it's an actual thing. It seems crazy, but they don't need water up there for cooling, and they, endless energy. So
Thank you,
thanks.
Christina. Holly Martin and Karen Broulette on deck. Good evening, Holly.
Good evening. Hello, Sedgwick County Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak here tonight. My name is Holly Martin. I'm a resident of Andale, Kansas, and also a member of our city council. I grew up outside Andale on a generational farm, raising cattle and working the hayfields through most of my childhood. I rode on a school bus to attend Andale Elementary and High School, and spent time fishing, hunting, and swimming and skiing in Cheney Lake. I joined the Army in 1990 with an appointment to the Military Academy at West Point, and served until October 31st, 2020. I am a soldier citizen who served in the logistics role for more than a quarter of a century. I worked with evolving technology throughout my service, have lived and served throughout the United States, all over, in a number of foreign countries to include Korea, Germany, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq, to name a few. I served in a variety of environments and have seen war and the destruction of environments firsthand, all in the name of progress, national defense, and security. In childhood, Army service, and especially in combat, I learned to distinguish a need from a want. And I can tell you, we do not need these data centers as a piece of our essential infrastructure. This is not about tax revenue. This is about survival and our way of life. What seems to be lost in our busy world today is the fact we do need the ability to sustain our lives. Right now, we have our God-given our rights, water, clean air, shelter, and land. We need a decent, affordable quality of life where we can live and build the next generation of Americans. The city of Andale is already working to intensely manage nitrate levels with local farmers and expects to need water treatment improvements in the future. I am convinced after months of researching data centers that these facilities will destroy every facet of our way of life and must be restricted from our equus, beds, aquifer areas and severely regulated, or they will cause irreparable harm to our county and our state. Rural areas are being targeted because of the low cost and amounts of land available and the lack of local and higher government regulations. I have taken the time to build a list of 55 data center side effects that I will email all of you. Regulating this immense problem is in your hands. So if these 55 reasons aren't going to be enough to convince you why we don't need data centers, I'd like to leave you with these final thoughts. Where one data center is built, others will cluster, and so will their support infrastructure. Data centers are not needed by the people who live here. They are needed by billionaires who do not live here. We need to think hard about what we need for the future of our children, for the future of our county, and for the future of America. Thank you.
Holly, thank you for your multitude of service. Thank you for your service. Karen Broulette and Caleb H. on deck.
Hello.
Good evening, Karen.
Hello, I'm Karen Broulette from South Wichita, and I have family in the Andover-Colwich area. You're hearing tonight that we have a lot of very specific questions and statements on numerous aspects of the data center. Is anyone recording these questions or prepared to transcribe them and write them down? Will you know what they are 5 minutes after we leave? Will you give us specific answers to our questions in the contracts or anything that you see from the people that you're talking to? Where can we find these answers? Will they be written down in the future and published? Who is the consultant firm that you've been working with? What is their background, experience, expertise? Have they given other governing bodies advice on data centers? If so, what was the outcome of their advice? Will they be able to see a copy of the proposal before you make the decision? Will you allow some rebuttal from some of our experts who have put a great deal of educated time and effort into presenting their case? I think most of us are very concerned about the water issues in light of the number of years Kansas has been in a drought. If Cheney starts going down, will there become a time when the citizens and businesses go on water restrictions? Will the data centers go on water restrictions? At what level of the lake at the data center have to comply with those restrictions? Once they're up and going, will you have the power to tell them to shut it down, to turn it off? Multiple states now are placing moratoriums on data centers for further investigation. Why do you think that is? Or if they're safe and money-making investment, then why are so many people pulling out? I suggest it's because there have been so many problems with them, and I read this morning that work on some of them have been halted and even abandoned, with big facilities already being built, and they've been left because they can't get the support for the moratoriums that have been put on them. Will the data center here be started before all the backup is approved and ready? Will the water and electricity from nuclear, solar, windmill, natural gas, how much do they need? You've got a year to do the battery. You've only got 6 months to do the data. If you let them do the data, and a year from now you don't let them do the battery, they can't function. This is a package deal. It all has to come at once, or they may start and then leave a mess when they leave.
Thanks, Karen. Caleb H. and Josie Bar on deck. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Caleb Harp, and I live at Seneca and McCormick in South Wichita, Kansas. I'm here today because this issue is not simply about how to use land. It is about whether you choose a future for Kansas that can still farm, still afford water, still afford electricity, and still live on the land that their families have built for generations. Kansas is regularly in a water crisis. This is not an opinion, it is a documented reality. Across the state, drought conditions have become more frequent and more severe. Farmers west of Coleridge have already raised alarms about wells, water tables, and the long-term viability of their land. Their concerns are not hypothetical, they're lived experiences. And into this fragile environment, we are being asked to approve hyperscale data centers, facilities that, according to Kansas City water contracts obtained by KS HB 41, can use millions of gallons of water per day. Millions per day, in a state where entire communities are already rationing water and praying for rain. Even the Kansas legislature has acknowledged the severity of this issue. Senate Bill 400, introduced in 2026, explicitly states that Kansas must conserve and protect itself from on-site water consumption footprint of large data centers. We're told that these projects bring jobs, but the truth is simple. They typically have anywhere between 20 and 50 full-time workers once they are operational. That's not economic development. That's not a job engine. It's a farce. Meanwhile, the water they consume and the energy they demand will raise costs for every household, every farm, and every business. And a Coleridge farmer recently shared that her son built a home on their family land, and less than a year ago, and her family will not continue to build because of the construction of this project if it goes through. We are not anti-technology, we are pro-Kansas. We are pro-water. Water is life. If companies want to build a data center, they can do so in regions with sustainable water supplies and not in a drought-stricken state where every drop matters. Our message is clear. No data centers in Sedgwick County, no data centers in Kansas. Not now, not ever. If you actually care about our community, commissioners, you have the power to stop this permanently, and we are telling you to use it. Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb. Josie Bar and Jenny Peloquin on deck. Good evening, Josie.
Good evening. I must say, well, first of all, my name is Josie Bar, and I live at 2307 North Chelmsford Circle in Wichita. We live on the east side of the city, and we have had several wells in our neighborhood already go dry, have to be redrilled much deeper. So I think we all here know that we're in a water crisis, period. I would like, if you are pro data center, raise your hand. If you're against the data centers, raise your hand. Thank you. I think you have your answer. We are people who care about what happens in our county and in our city. We are people who vote. I think you should put this to a vote for people who live in Sedgwick County. Also, I have a feeling that a lot of you are just making time right now, just listening to us, and you're going to do whatever you want anyway. I was surprised that you wanted to do this town hall. And I'd like to know if there are any reporters out there, any journalists with courage, who would like to find out if any of you are getting any incentives or gifts or any kind of monetary or property incentives to make sure this happens, no matter what we say. Because I have a feeling, judging by some people's facial expressions up there, that you're not really taking us seriously, that you're going to do what you want, and that you're just, how do they say it? Just appeasing us by doing this. So my suggestion is the people of Sedgwick County vote on this.
Jenny Peloquin, and followed by Katira Pelton.
Thank you very much. I didn't hear your name earlier. My name is Jenny Peloquin, and I live at 623 Union Park Circle in Colwich, and I'm also a teacher at St. Joe Oast. And I didn't come here expecting to speak at all, but I appreciate the opportunity to share my opinion with you, and I appreciate the time that you are all taking and listening to us, because the Colwich Data Center would be in my backyard. And then when I go to school and go to work, the Garden Plain Data Center would be in my backyard. And for all of these reasons that all of these great people have given, I just ask you to please consider the information. There's way more information on what has happened to these data centers communities and the impact that they have had and the negative impacts that they have had. And with my research and the research that so many have found, the positives and the negatives are at such an imbalance that we as a community, we as a county, can't possibly support something with so few positives. So thank you again for your time, and I ask you to please continue to listen to these people, continue to, extend that moratorium until this is no longer an issue and they build it in space. Thank you very much.
Katira Pellington, followed by Caitlyn Gruinbacher.
Hello, my mama. My biggest priority. And one of the reasons we're getting so many data centers today is for AI usage. And there are no broad regulations, no federal regulations for AI currently, which puts children's data and privacy at risk. I mean, we already know our data and privacy has already been breached by Google. Everybody knows that. But I cannot support any data center as of now because there are no morals and ethics that protect children. Like just on Twitter with generative images, with their AI model, an image of any child can be put in. And I know there are little people here today, little children, so I won't use graphic language, but with no regulations, those pictures of your children used in these generative AI models that are owned by these billion dollar companies, they can be undressed. They can be, with any of these prompts, be used in very evil ways. And like you said, this is a religious community. At the moment, I want to protect all of my kids. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Caitlyn Gruinbacher, followed by Janice Addis Weber. Good evening, Caitlyn.
Good evening. How are you guys? I know you've had a busy day. I'll try and keep it short. First off, I just want to take a few minutes to thank everybody who's come this evening to share their perspective. I appreciate all of you being here to represent and hear us. I appreciate Andrew coming and representing the GWP and their perspective on this. I know this is a difficult and emotional situation for a lot of us, and I hope that we can continue to have a great conversation and try and leave as much emotion at the door as possible and just focus on the facts. My husband and I operate a farm at 5901 North 199th Street West. I want to start, well, I already thanked you guys. One of the topics mentioned multiple times through the last couple of months has been private property rights. I do agree that those rights are at the center of this discussion. However, so are the rights of the community, which is why we're here tonight. Where is that tipping point between individual rights and the consideration of the health and well-being for the rest of the community? The bottom line is that our community deserves protection from their neighbors, making a choice that will have lasting ramifications on our investments, our health, and ultimately the trajectory of our future. We need time to carefully consider what is right for all the parties involved. That is why Senator Blasey and Senator Murphy have called for a 3-year moratorium with support of other members of the Senate. Lawmakers in at least 11 states have introduced legislation this session that would temporarily ban data centers. There are also countless other local areas across the nation that have already enacted moratoriums. A moratorium, from my understanding, is a tool used to give our local leaders the time they need to make responsible decisions, as well as the time for the community to participate. I've heard it said that a moratorium on one type of business conveys to all businesses that we are not welcoming for economic growth. In my opinion, I think this is another way for businesses to manipulate the narrative in a way to gain them an advantage, telling us to move faster so they can hope to profit from the mistakes we make in haste. You've already demonstrated that you realize how important this is with the moratoriums with BESS and solar. You have also extended the application pause, which I appreciate. I encourage you to continue to take your time on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlyn. Janice Addis Weber, followed by Angela Moss. Good evening, Janice.
Hi. Hello, County Commission members and fellow residents of Sedgwick County. My name is Janice Addis Weber. I am the trustee of the Garden Plain Township. Townships are tasked with maintaining township roads and related drainage systems, which include ditches and culverts, installing and maintaining traffic control signs in township roads, levying taxes to fund these services independent of the main county government. Our focus is to keep our township roads safe and functional in every weather situation. The concerns we have with the proposed data center in Garden Plain Township, which is our township, is during the construction phase and ongoing operations of the facility, the heavy construction traffic on our township roads will cause premature breakdown of the surface of our blacktop and gravel roads. The sheer magnitude of delivery of construction material and concrete will overwhelm any road. Traffic safety is another concern, with school buses full of our children, postal carriers stopping at mailboxes, slow-moving farm equipment, emergency services, for our community now having to share our roads with heavy equipment going to and from the data center campus. Water runoff is another concern, because the non-permeable surfaces of the data center campus will cause a large volume of runoff than farm fields, thus causing flooding of our township roads during a heavy rain event, which we get here in Kansas. That will cause bridges and culverts to not be adequate, which can cause our roads to be impassable and dangerous. And in case of a fire at a data center, is there any risk of water pollution from chemicals used to fight the fire leaving the data center property? There needs to be some containment built into the system. The township also has questions about additional easements that would be required with expanding roads and utilities that would be needed to service the data center campus. We would also like to see setbacks of at least a half a mile to any resident, as well as a landscape buffer for quality of life issues in our township. The townships have concern about trucking waste coolant water from the data center campus to a disposal facility that would cause a lot of wear and tear on our county roads. Along with that is the question of if there are any hazardous chemicals being transported in and out of the data center campus on our township roads. The biggest concern the township has is money for the additional road culvert and bridge maintenance that will be needed due to the data center. With all of the tax breaks the data center will receive, is the township going to receive any added income to maintain the safety of our township roads?
Okay. Thank you, Janice. Angela Moss and Anna Hahn on deck.
My name is Angela Manns, and I live about 2 miles from the proposed Garden Plain. Tonight I wanted to focus on something very simple, the economics of this decision. Because when we step back and look at the numbers, it raises serious questions. Is placing a hyperscale data center in one of the fastest growing residential areas of Sedgwick County actually a good financial decision? The data suggests it may not be. Let's start with what's already happening. According to the U.S. Census Bureau building permit data, Sedgwick County has had over 11,700 new homes in just 5 years. In western Sedgwick County, in communities like Garden Plain, Andale, and Colwich, within and around Renwick School District. That growth represents something extremely important to county finances: stable long-term property tax revenue. Residential property already represents about 61 to 64% of Sedgwick County's total tax base, making housing the single largest revenue, school funding, local spending. A hyperscale data center produces something very different. West Wichita County, Sedgwick County is already experiencing something many communities hope for: health-sustained growth driven by families. The housing data shows it, the property value shows it, the school enrollment tends to show it. The question tonight is whether growth should happen. It already is. The question is, do not protect the short-term residential growth that has already strengthened this community, or should we replace it with industrial infrastructures that provide far fewer long-term economic benefits? This is not just a land use decision. It's a financial decision that will shape the community for the next 20 or 30 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Anna Hahn, followed by Jake Martin.
Hello, my name is Anna Hahn. I'm an environmental geologist, and I live with my family in Colwich. I'll try to shorten this up just a little bit. So these facilities will have chemicals on site. I think we can all accept that. They use it in their processes. Chemicals are stored in tanks. They'll very likely, it seems to be the preferred method, to have diesel generators for their backup storage. We have seen other sites that it's millions of gallons of diesel storage on site, which is insane. And then there are also many transformers used on these sites as well. For those of you familiar with real estate, chemical tanks, fuel storage, and transformers would all be identified as possible hazards during a phase 1 environmental investigation. So these are not crazy concerns or anything like that. I've worked on all sorts of sites where these were the actual cause of contamination. Permits and monitoring requirements are put in place to establish rules to reasonably limit the risk of contamination. But these requirements do not eliminate all risk. Permits and regulations are protective, but the risk of contamination is never zero. Accidents happen and unforeseen events occur. With time, almost all tanks leak, gaskets and seals fail, and spills happen. Extreme weather events such as flooding, extreme temperatures, ice storms, or even tornadoes are becoming more frequent. They're even talking about needing to change the 100-year floodplain because extreme events are becoming more. And those are all things that impact facilities like this and the homeowners around it or the communities around it. There are too many unknowns with hyperscale facilities. They have only been in operation for a few years, which is no length of time environmentally. Environmental regulations are very often not developed until a problem has occurred. This has been no time to flesh out all the problems that could occur. And so this is why I hope that you guys take the consideration to really do the due diligence to take all of these things to in effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Jake Martin, followed by Chad Heimerson. Evening, Jake.
Hi, my name's Jake Martin. I'm a lifelong resident of Sedgwick County in the Endale area. My wife Emily and I own and operate a farm here in Sedgwick County. I do currently sit on the GMD2 Equisbed Groundwater Management Board. I am here tonight representing my own opinions, right? Not necessarily the board itself. It's been hit several times. Everyone's talking about drought and the 4-year extensive drought we just came out of. But one thing that I haven't heard mentioned and that I want to emphasize is that the Gordon Evans plant owned by Evergy just northwest of the town of Colwich was idled through that 4-year period. That facility has permitted legal water rights in the amount of 6,554.6 acre feet across 17 wells. If fully utilized, that is 2.36 trillion gallons of water a year. I mention this because it's been said that that is the only available water in that area, in that Colwich area, is for them to source that water from Evergy. If any farmer in the local area, anybody tries to apply for a new permit, that area is already over appropriated, meaning the answer would be no, right? We're not going to be able to get that water. So their primary viable option is to source that water and buy that water for Evergy, and that would be perfectly legal for them to go do. So I just want them to basically abide by the same rules that we would have to, right? And so I just want to call that out that, yeah, there's water available there. And if any of that water is appropriated for use for them, obviously the drought we just went through would have been drastically worse. Let's see, the last comment here. The farmland in Sedgwick County is some of the best land in the state. We are fortunate to farmland across 3 counties, Sedgwick, Reno, and Harvey. The farmland in Sedgwick County is consistently the best yielding. I know that I'm not alone in this sentiment, as well as I've had several conversations with landowners that have expressed their disgust in covering up this fertile land with concrete and buildings. One point I heard a few weeks ago is that the proposed locations are just the start. We've heard it again here tonight, and once one goes in, there's going to be more happening, and it's going that way all across the country. Furthermore, when this technology becomes obsolete, and it will, we can't undo the damage that's been done. Ag is still a vital part of this community, and I'd like it to stay that way. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Chad, and then followed by Kathy Panaslin. I can't read the name, sorry. Go ahead, Chad. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chad Homertstein. Yep. I'm a veterinarian. My veterinary practice would be 2 miles directly due east of the Garden Plain site. As I agree with, except maybe Andrew, I agree with everybody else that's made a comment here tonight as a business owner, as a landowner, as a producer, and as a resident. But one thing, or a few things, just touch on real quick. I'll try and condense this. There are some effects that could be had on animals, or cattle, or livestock, or pets, and wildlife. Light pollution, no different than people, can affect natural circadian rhythm, have potential for sleep-wake cycles that are abnormal. Hormones are going to be irregulated, appetite decrease, things like that, which can affect overall health of animals. Photo period. Some animals are seasonal breeders, such as sheep, goats, horses, dogs, cats, most wildlife, deer, coyotes, all that. They're seasonal breeders. They respond to different lights, increase or decrease in light. That can be affected by light pollution. We'll move on to noise pollution. Several studies in mice affecting their health and noise. I won't bore you with those details. Several studies in wild animals suffer chronic stress, fertility problems, and changing migration routes due to noise. I'll try and zip through these. We all know, of course, noise causes anxiety in people. We know noise causes anxiety in pets. Noise causes anxiety in horses. A human hears frequency about dogs, 60,000 hertz. Dogs can hear up about 4 times farther away than humans can. So other people have talked about the anxiety that the noise is going to cause from these. Can you imagine what it's going to do to some of these dogs? We already send out anti-anxiety medicine for dogs for thunderstorms and fireworks during 4th of July. Water pollution. Water is the #1 nutrient of all animals. That's a concern. And the dust, Diesel fuel, I do necropsies on livestock routinely that die from dust pollution or dust pneumonia, and so animals can't be forgotten this as well.
Thanks, Chad. Kathy and then Kelly Ellens on deck. Good evening, Kathy.
Hey, all good points have been made, so I'll be super short. Just to say that times are hard. The tech industry is a huge billion-dollar thing. This is not an opportunity. This is exploitation. Any guideline that you guys write would need to prevent us from being the backs that are being trampled on to enrich Silicon Valley billionaires. That's it.
Kelly Ellens, followed by Rebecca Armstrong. Good evening, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Ellens. I live at 29th and Ambaton in Wichita, so I don't live in western Sedgwick County. I have 15 years of experience in the tech industry. I have a decade in strategy and foresight. So I think in decades, I think in generations. I don't think in quarters, I don't think in years. And first of all, the first thing I want to say is working in tech for 15 years, you cannot trust these technology companies. You cannot trust what they're saying to you. Tech sales is competitive. These companies have the money to bring in the best salespeople in the nation, and you cannot trust anything they say. They will tell you what you want to hear. They will tell if the Greater Wichita Partnership is still here, they will tell you everything you want to hear. They'll tell you they're checking boxes. They will tell you anything to get the sale. The job is to get the sale. The job is to close the sale. You cannot trust them. The second thing I want to say is once they're here, when they're in these rural residential areas, you cannot go back. They will come in, they will spend the money, they'll spend all the money to come in. Their job is to exploit, it's to extract, it's to get as much as they can and pay as little as possible. When they're ready to leave, they will not take their stuff with them. They will leave a mess, and you will never be able to go back to have any sort of agriculture, any sort of rural residential. You can consider those communities gone, and I'm sorry to all of you that live there because it's sad. It is sad to think about because these are beautiful communities and the people that live there are passionate and they're tight-knit and Kansas and Sedgwick County are better because of them. And then finally, the last thing that I'll say is the reason I came here is because the first thing I wanted to do, I've been watching data centers for about 5 years, and I wanted to find an example of a well-done data center rollout where quality of life is improved. That doesn't exist. After that, I tried to look for a single example where quality of life is sustained. It's not. There is no example where quality of life does not decline across the county. So that includes me. That's not just you guys. All of us will suffer because of this. So you have to consider quality of life. It's not just about the money. I know the money makes your eyeballs look big, but that doesn't last. Money does not go far enough. And I implore you to think about the people. I implore you to think about the community. I implore you to think about the children. Think about Abby when you're making this decision, because she's what matters. She's the future of this county. It's not me. It's the children and it's their children. And we have to make better decisions today.
Thank you. Rebecca Armstrong, followed by Adam May. And you guys, we've got about 20 more speakers, and we've only got about 6 minutes. I would like to continue and let everybody else have a chance, but the more you guys clap, and I'd like to just kind of keep going so we can hear everybody's input. So if you guys work with us, we'd really appreciate that. If the commissioners, I'm sure you guys will stick around for a little bit to try to hear the rest of the speakers, hopefully. So, okay. Rebecca Armstrong, Adam May, Drew Renicons, Sina Martin, Mark Burkamp. Is Rebecca Armstrong not here? Okay, Adam May.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening, Adam.
Thank you.
I was born in Garden Plain, lived in Wichita, went to school at WSU, and now I've been able to move my family back to Garden Plain. Ward off data centers because they are the definition of an extractive industry in a rural setting. They offer minimal long-term employment, yet they demand an inordinate amount of energy and water. These resources belong to these people. Instead of allowing data centers to take over, we should leave ourselves open to alternative developments that help the fight for safe food, clean water, clean land, and a livable climate. You can look close to Kansas State, who received a $50 million grant from the U.S. Agency for International Development just less than 2 years ago. Those are going to be innovations that our farmers can put into practice here, but not if those data centers are here. This decision comes with an opportunity cost. If our land is so attractive now, it will be in the future.
In Hillside, Wichita, that doesn't make any sense to do this to this land, right? You've heard a lot from the people in this community, and the consensus of your constituents is clear. No data centers. The drizzle of devil's advocates beg you to please consider what some hypothetical tech boom may be. As our water and air is poisoned, our electricity is siphoned, and our bills go up again. Listen to the people that live there. No data centers. Thanks.
Cena Martin. And again, you guys, I'm still got 15, 16 speakers here. If we could keep the scope to zoning regulations and input on zoning regulations we have not discussed, please.
Okay. I read an article from the National Fire Protection Association that was printed in February of 2026. There is a fire marshal, Michael Brune, there who is regulating and overseeing 30 data centers there. A fire has already happened there. Materials was left on the roof of the data center building and it caught fire, ignited the membrane structure. The fire department was notified. They arrived at the gate, light and sirens on, and the security guard would not let them in. Claimed there was no fire. They had to go around to the construction gate to gain access to put it out, and they were further away from the location of the fire. Ultimately, it is our Sedgwick County firefighters who will be asked to respond when something inevitably goes wrong. At this point in time, Garden Plain is roughly 8 minutes away with 3 full-time. Their hazmat team is Goddard, which is 10 minutes away from the Garden Plain site, and they have 5 full-time firefighters there. The national standard for an alarm is a 4-minute response time. When the response is not met, there are 3 critical areas directly affected: civil's injury and death, firefighter injury and death, and property loss. I have spoken with multiple men in the Sedgwick County Fire Department, and after explaining the layout of the hyperscale data center, 75-foot tall buildings, with our current conditions, he said, we would have to draw multiple Wichita Fire Departments to aid that area, and we would be overwhelmed. Wichita Fire Department staffing station analysis says that currently they need to hire 115 firefighters, build 11 new stations, hire 8 additional training and recruiting staff, 7 continuing education and certified specialists, and then hire additional firefighters to staff those new stations. And when I bring up the Wichita Fire Department for the rural areas, why am I doing this? Those companies that are coming in will build their own fire departments, which seems great. But the 2022 warns, the report that I read said that the city should not add trucks, engines, without adding the city's current low staffing levels. It shouldn't start building fire stations without adding support. And when the city's resources are not used effectively, the public is the one that suffers, and it will end consequently in death.
Thanks, Sina.
Thank you.
Mark Burkamp, Olivia Nasse, and David Blasey. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Commissioners. Mark Burkamp, 8431 West 47 South, Clearwater. Farm with my family, mostly western and southern Sedgwick County, down into Sumner also. I'll keep it quick here. 3 key topics, I think. Power usage. So does the KCC large load user tariff, does that adequately address it? Water usage, our closed loop systems, how much do they use? Just for reference, a single irrigated quarter, we typically would use between 30 and 60 million gallons per year. And also siting. Probably need to be in industrial areas or near it. You know, is that key? Is that important? I'll say just, you know, in the past, so when as a kid growing up, my dad would always remind us, hey, turn off the power, or turn off the light switch, you know, we don't want to pay for Wolf Creek, right? So looking back 45 years ago, I'm sure there were cost overruns, a lot of people didn't like it, but now it kind of looks like it was a great investment. You know, and then as we drive around small towns with my kids, some of them will say, hey, I wonder what, you know, where do these people work? Where do these people work? Well, they work in industry somewhere. Chances are, if there's not much in that town, they drive to the bigger towns. So it is important. People, they do offer jobs, even if they don't offer jobs. Industry is, so a data center doesn't offer a whole lot of jobs, but they're infrastructure for other jobs, right? You guys have spent a lot of money investing in biomedical campus, all the training centers around town. This could possibly provide some property tax revenue, kind of like an annuity maybe, as long as they're not getting abatements for that. So, closing, I personally am not ready to give up my smartphone. My wife's not ready to delete all her photos off Shutterfly, and I don't want to buy encyclopedias from traveling salesmen anymore. I prefer to just look it up.
Okay,
That's all I
thanks,
have.
Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Olivia Noss, followed by David Blasey, Tanya Witherspoon. Olivia? Good evening.
I just want to confirm, is it Olivia Hayes?
Okay,
You might
so
be
I'm having a
reading-
hard
okay.
time with some of the, and my penmanship, no one
No,
can
I
read.
assume,
so.
yeah. Okay, so I just want to share a little bit, and I'm not with the guy that came in front. We didn't plan this. So I just want to share the types of data that's typically stored in these facilities. So the first is smartphone and social media data. The second, of course, is AI. So your AI Christmas cards, your AI little career day photos, that stuff. Your short form video tools, so the tools that you use to make reels and TikToks, which I enjoy, and online training. So if you've ever had to re-up a certification and go through like an online training module, that's the type of stuff we're talking about. So I wonder a couple of things. I wonder how many of us have used any of those tools in the last few days, few weeks, few months, right? I know I have. I also wonder, are our convictions against data centers a problem for government to solve? Or is it perhaps a chance for us to look internally and consider our part in all of this? What I'm saying is, if we continue to enjoy technology, which again, I do, and if we continue to go down the path of this extreme codependency on technology, then the need for these types of facilities is only going to rise. Now, I didn't say where I lived because of the name thing. I live very far the south part of the county. I'm surrounded by fields. I have a field. So from a landowner perspective, the county has already said that if I need to make ends meet, I cannot look at wind as an option. And we've made solar so difficult that really I don't think anyone's really applying for that. I think the one business that was here, I think they left. So I'm asking that you not take this opportunity off the table. I will say that not a single person in this room or at that table should come between a contract between two well-informed consenting parties. Now don't hear what I'm not saying. I am not saying this should be a free-for-all. There is a way to triple bottom line this, where landowners and businesses and even the environment and the community can all be okay. What I'm asking for is that you trust the consulting firm that you've already hired, set parameters without going overboard, and do not consider an all-out ban. A good negotiation is when everybody leaves something on the table, and I do believe clear, solid parameters, guardrails, is the best thing in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Yeah. David Blasey, Tanya Witherspoon, and David Litz. David,
Hi.
good evening.
Hi, David Blasey, 12609 West Jason Lane, Wichita, Kansas. My family has the land that is at ground zero. My mom is by Daryl and all those folks. And I think, I'm just going to keep it short. I don't have any written comments, but I think Jordan Unles, who spoke earlier, hit the nail on the head. I've spent 30 years practicing law. I helped develop properties all around the world, billions and billions of dollars in India, in Europe, in Asia. And what I can tell you is billionaires aren't necessary, they're not evil. No, they're not sitting there going, They are driven by money. And that is the bottom line. I've sat in the meetings with them, I've done the books with them, and they are looking at the lowest cost they can achieve. And I think the extraction of what they're looking to achieve in this area is why it's that's why they're coming to us. So to link up with what Jordan said, I think there's two words that I want to leave this group with. One is fiduciary, which is you are a fiduciary for these people, for this community. You need to do what's best for these people, all the people, and the community. And the second legal term, which I use all the time, indemnification. I've heard a lot about concerns. You can't reduce anything to zero risk. That's not possible. So I get it. I mean, my mom is going to be impacted by this more than anybody if it goes in. But if you ask these companies, in all transparency, you write a regulation and you say, here's our conditional use permit, it's a contract, and you are going to indemnify this community. If it's $1 billion, you need to indemnify us for $1 billion. I've been to data centers all over the world. They were small. They've been in Mainz, Germany. They're rooms this size with servers. But hyperscale data centers are very different. So you please use your fiduciary duty and make sure that this community is indemnified.
Tanya Witherspoon, David Litz, Milo Westbrook. Tanya, good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Tanya Witherspoon. I was born and raised in Wichita, and I own multiple properties and have lived in western Sedgwick County for more than 30 years. My husband and I have raised all 5 of our children here, and we are preparing to welcome our 5th grandchild this summer. Our grandchildren represent the 5th generation of Witherspoons living in Sedgwick County. I'm also the founder and CEO of Mindscapes. I've spent more than 30 years in the tech sector developing technology, building the tech workforce, and helping organizations use innovation to create business outcomes. I'm here today speaking only for myself and my family. I care deeply about this place, about our land, our water, and about making sure that growth in Sedgwick County is shaped carefully and responsibly. I agree that data centers should be carefully planned. Sedgwick County should absolutely take power, water, noise, emissions, land use, and compatibility seriously. Thoughtful standards matter to Kansans, and so does thoughtful economic strategy. This conversation should not stop at regulation, and it should not be driven by fear. Sedgwick County should be careful not to let understandable public concern and short-term political pressure produce a policy outcome that contradicts the state of Kansas's own infrastructure and economic development strategy. A 3-year moratorium would send the wrong signal at the very moment that Kansas is investing in open access middle mile broadband, internet exchange point capabilities, digital skills, workforce development, entrepreneurship, and broader digital opportunity. That kind of disconnect would not strengthen Sedgwick County's future. It would weaken its position. The county should respond with disciplined planning and clear standards, not retreat. Kansas is already investing in this future. The Wichita Internet Exchange Point and the Free State Middle Mile together represent roughly $48 million in strategic infrastructure. I urge you to please create thoughtful standards, reject fear-driven retreat, and convene a work session on a county-wide digital infrastructure strategy. Kansas should be proactive, strategic, and ready to compete in the economic digital economy. Thank you.
Tanya, would you stand for a quick question?
No, I just wanted to say for 15 seconds, and again, I know you're incredibly smart. I want this room to know that 5 years ago, you were one of the people, probably one of the most important people in Sedgwick County, because you saved incredible numbers of lives with what you did at Wichita State University with respect to COVID. And we work together very closely. And every time I see you, I'm so proud of you and what you've done for this community. I want people to know that you're a rock star on that front. You saved lives. Thank you for what you did there.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tanya. David Litz, Milo Westbrook, Bart Eck, Jeremy Wheeler. Good evening, David.
Good evening. Stop smiling up there. My name is David. I'm from Park City. I can't, how to call it, I can't follow up with what Ms. Witherspoon said about technology. But the questions I have from my standpoint is we've heard about water, we've heard about land, et cetera. I'm talking about the technology.
You can go a little closer. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
You're taller than our average speaker.
Sorry. I'll try to, do I get a redo on the thing, do I?
Yeah.
Okay. My name's David. I'm from Park City. I actually do IT. Been doing it for 25 plus years. We've heard a lot about water. We've heard about land. We've heard about all the different stuff here. From the other side of the fence, I'm looking from the technology aspect. What impacts, if you put a data center within Sedgwick County, what the technology impacts is going to be? Yeah, we've heard about the internet from Ms. Witherspoon about some of the stuff from a technology standpoint, but how do you put that in a area where it's not prevalent? Meaning that a lot of the places in the area, Colwich, et cetera, only are serviced by, let's say, Idea Tech or those type of individuals. Keep in mind the data center connection would have to be 500 gig to a terabyte connection to that location, and it has to be sustained. It's not something you just can't just cut the line and, it's got to be sustained, in our words, 99.999% of the time. So it's not something you just can't be out for 2 or 3 minutes. It has to be sustained all the time. And how does that impact our technology within Sedgwick County? And the last thing that I keep talking to Mr. Beatty about, where's our return on investment? I mean, from that standpoint, if we're investing all this money, all this capabilities, what are we getting out of it as a community? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Milo Westbrook, Bardeck, Jeremy Wheeler. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Milo Westbrook. I live at 3414 East Central Avenue. I'm a 21-year-old community outreach major at Wichita State University, and I'm going to be quite blunt with you because I think some people haven't been. If you allow a data center to be built in Kansas, then you and everybody else in power are inherently killing our state and everybody in it. Data centers threaten public health with their excessive air, water, light, and noise pollution, as some people have already mentioned. Both the excessive noise and light pollution from these data centers alone, that's not counting every other kind of pollution, cause seizures, cancer, weakened immune systems, reproductive failure, hearing loss, spikes in cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and a general decreased quality of life. According to the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, data centers caused about $6 billion in public health damages due to this type of pollution alone in the year 2023. And that's not mentioning the scale it's at right now. They also affect the health of viable livestock and wild animals. They alter natural behavior, disrupt animal communication, force wildlife to change natural migration patterns, and can even make them more susceptible to parasites. Additionally, specifically in the terms of cattle, this noise pollution can cause excessive amounts of somatic cells in cow's milk, which can lead to health disorders in humans and any other animals that consume that dairy. In terms of economics, many people will use an increase in jobs available to the community as a pro for building data centers. However, according to GradientCore.com, these jobs will only appear during the construction phase. They actually drastically decrease after the data center is completed. A smaller facility, such as one owned by Microsoft, employs as few as 50 people, while a larger one only employs around up to maximum 500 people. They also take up extensive land and predominantly get placed in lower income and oftentimes black communities. Not only do these data centers use excessive amounts of energy, whatever, I have a whole other speech plan. All I'm gonna end this with is, if you care about this community and you actually wanna make a difference and it isn't just about money for you, put it to a vote. Because as you saw before, there's like 2 people in this room who want this. So if you care about us like you say you do with these positions of power that you have, you will listen to your community and do what's right for it and put it to a vote. Thank you.
Evening, Jeremy.
Hey, good evening. I'm Jeremy Wheeler from the Seneca and McCormick neighborhood, and we've heard a lot of misinformation and hyperbole tonight, but I like facts and statistics. If you use modern banking, cell phone, social media, internet, streaming anything, email, text messaging, remote work, supply chains, emergency services, utilities, data services, healthcare, electronic medical records, patient data, imaging, then give them all up, because that's what, they wouldn't exist without data centers. In short, you want to shut up, please? Thank you. I reclaim my time. In short, a world without data centers would
please be respectful,
mean
guys.
returning to analog systems for banking, communication, commerce, causing immense operational disruptions across all industries. 87% of Kansas is used for agricultural use. I think we have plenty of room for data centers. And in addition, watering your lawns, watering your corn waste more water than data centers.
You guys, would you please let him finish?
Typically require 1.5 inches of water per week to stay green, requiring 125 gallons per 1,000 square foot. Growing corn actually wastes more water than closed-loop data centers. Let's go on. Texas communities have benefited from data centers. They have had substantial tax revenue and public funding. Data centers are high-value properties that significantly expand the local tax base. In communities like San Antonio, Microsoft's investments contribute to property taxes that fund local hospitals, schools, parks, and libraries. Ellis County, where Google's long-term presence has provided a real boost, delivering steady growth and funding municipal services that benefit families across the district. Going down, we can talk about community action.
Let him finish his thought, folks. I've let everybody else finish their thoughts, please.
Using devices that depend on data centers.
Hey, just finish your thought, Jeremy, please.
Thank you. Google has announced a $40 billion investment in Texas through 2027 to expand its cloud and AI infrastructure. As part of this commitment, the company is launching a $30 million energy impact fund focused on accelerating local energy initiatives and supporting community energy efficiency programs. I am confident that any water, electric usage, noise concerns, and can be mitigated with proper regulation requirements. All these issues have been so mitigated in other communities, as per my given examples.
Okay.
So,
thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Jeremy. Bardeck, Sterling Duncan, and then Chelsea Cox. Bart, sorry, kind of got the order messed up there when I repeated names.
Short, it's getting late. A couple of the speakers prompting something. I just want to say I appreciate what you guys have done. You've been flexible, you've relocated, you've switched locations, you've gone 20 minutes over. I don't think any of you are getting paid for this or taking bribes. I've talked to most of you. I've talked to a lot of you. I think you have the best interest in mind, and I think you're working hard for this. I agree there's been a lot of misinformation, disinformation on both sides. I did want to say, Commissioner Howell, I heard you mention yesterday the hesitation on a 3-year moratorium, and just setting a moratorium for the sake of setting a moratorium. We've also heard, though, in the same breath that we can't, when we're pulling facts from other projects, we can't cite projects that are more than a year old because the technology is changing so quickly, right? And that a data center built a year and a half ago is not like a data center built now. So then which is it, right? How do we realistically expect the planning department to get something put in place in 3 months for a building that's not going to be the same? The design's different, the technology's different. We're talking out of both sides of our mouth a little bit. So I just wanted to make that point. I know you said it's potentially a political play or a tactic to make these things go away. For me personally, I really don't think it is. I truly believe that what's happening right now is revolutionary in the United States and across the world, and the technology will be completely different, and these builds will be completely different in 3 years, and it's an extremely big ask to put something in place so quickly. I think you've heard other people say there's people on both sides of the aisle at the state level, the national level right now, that's trying to ask everybody, let's just take a deep breath. Let's pause and really understand what the heck we're doing here, and if it's something that we want. So that's all.
Jeff.
Thanks. Bart, I do want to state that, you know, the June 12th date we just kicked it out to, that is the minimum amount of time for minimum and the fastest that could happen. So we're listening to you guys. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say, most of the people may not have even heard what we talked about yesterday, so I wanted to clarify. June the 11th is the date right now. That's not fast and firm. We're going to take our time to do this right, and if it takes months or however long it takes longer, I'm convinced. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I'm impressed that they are very thoughtful people. We'll take our time with this. If we have to extend it out once or twice more, however long it takes to do this right. And again, we're going to have to respond to the technology that's presented to us as we know it. I understand things are changing. That's true. They might have to change again in the future. We don't know. But we have to take things as we know them. So again, our goal, I think, is to be responsive to what is in front of us. And then we'll take our time to do this the right way. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart.
Thank you all.
Sterling Duncan, Chelsea Cox, Sheila Briggs. Good evening, Sterling.
Hello, my name is Sterling Duncan. I've lived in Wichita for nigh 3 decades now, most of my life pretty much. And luckily, many people have already expressed many of the thoughts that I've already had today. And I just really wanted to push that when we're considering these zoning permits, when we're considering how long it's going to take us to talk about this and really look at the impact, we need to look at what exists now in the rest of the country and globally. They have lied about the amount of pollution. It's much worse than what they promise. They lie about the jobs. They lie about the ecological impact. They lie about the health impacts. On top of that, they're servicing these companies, Meta, Google, Amazon, that are routinely just in national news for various reasons that they have lied about their data usage, about their creation policies, and heavily, these data centers are being used for the purposes of large language model generations, which is based entirely on theft, on a massive scale that's not been seen, law breaking in so many ways that hasn't been done since Prohibition. It's frankly so apparent that when you actually look at the matter of what kind of results are coming out of this, especially the economic results, that we need to seriously put this to a longer field of test. This is not something that we should be swindled by like all these other counties have been. I really hope that you have the minimal foresight needed to see that and to put the residents of Sedgwick County ahead of these people who just want to extract and abuse us. Thank you.
Thanks. Chelsea Cox, Sheila Briggs, Kathy Good. Good evening, Chelsea.
Good evening. I'm going to start with what may seem like a little bit of emotion, but it's actually a testament to my main point. My name is Chelsea Cox, and I live at 4989 North 295th with my husband and 6 children. Our house sits just 2.5 miles from the Garden Plain proposed data center site. We bought the land our house sits on from my grandmother, and it has been in her family for many years. We built our house 10 years ago and plan on living there forever. So when we found out about these data centers and started researching them, we were devastated. We love the peacefulness of the country, we love the privacy, and we love our unobscured views. We chose to live in a rural area because of these things. We would have never built a forever home near an industrial area. So obviously, in addition to ruining the landscape, I'm concerned about the air, noise, and water pollution, because these aren't just nuisances that we would adapt to, they're legitimate health threats to our bodies and minds. Our family's health and safety is our top priority, and if that means leaving our dream home on ancestral land and moving somewhere without a data center, we may have to do that, but that poses another concern, property values. Angela Mann spoke earlier and did a great job about what we have now, the growth in our tax base with our property values. So we, like so many others, have most of our wealth invested in our home, and if we are forced to sell, I know that our home will not be worth nearly as much if a data center goes in. I'm a realtor, and I do most of my business selling homes in the Renwick area. In fact, I have shown a home that is listed for sale near this site, and buyers are already not interested because of just the talks of a data center. So it's easy to guess what would happen if there actually was a data center, because nobody wants to live by them. Homes consistently sell for higher prices in Renwick than nearby areas, and that's because people are willing to pay more for the quality of life it provides. Turning our rural agricultural area into an industrial corridor will kill the growth and community makeup that people desire. This needs to be considered because it'll have an effect on the tax base. The county would lose income when property values drop and people quit building houses. And if anyone argues that a data center would offset those losses, is that really where the constituents stand on the county's priority list? I pray not. The negatives far outweigh the positives. We, like so many others, moved back to this area after college because we wanted to instill in our children the same country values with which we were raised, and one of those values is being a good neighbor. I believe in property rights, but in this day and age, you have to draw a line because people are always pushing the limits. And neighbors shouldn't be able to do something that would have such devastating and long-reaching effects on the surrounding area. The bottom line is that these are our families and our homes, and we do not want to have to worry about health concerns or safety or property values, and we wouldn't wish it upon anyone else either. We, like everyone else in this county, just want what is best for our community, and this type of project is not it. For the sake of your citizens, I ask that you please consider placing at least a 3-year moratorium to allow greater research on data centers. Thank you.
Thanks, Chelsea. Sheila Briggs, Katie Good, Sophia N. Sheila Briggs, Katie Good, Sheila or Katie? Sheila? Katie? Okay.
Like a Sheila. My name is Katie Good. I live in Colwich. So regarding the large 6 to 30 acre hyperscale buildings, so what's the plan after the 20-year tax exemption is gone and technology, as we know, it changes every 3 to 5 years? A data center may last up to 10 to 15 years, even though the building can last 50 or more. So what happens to the structure once the company moves their servers out, and how will everything be purged? So I think, just to keep this short, what happens when they decommission one of these data centers, so the shutdown of these, like Morgan Stanley hired a moving company to handle the servers and the hard drives. Personal information of millions of customers was then put at risk, and U.S. regulators fined the bank $60 million for improper hardware decommissioning this oversight. So if these are not properly decommissioned, once put in, many safety and environmental opportunities can occur that will affect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia N., Denise Lewis, and Wayne. Man, this looks like Sophia.
My name is Sophia Nunes, 2009 South Old Manor. I'm speaking for Coda Honor on the for the Tenton Union. She couldn't be here today because she has to work to be able to pay rent. Energy plants release gases such as carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen oxide into the air, poisoning the people. That's excluding the backup generators used for these data centers that also release nitrogen oxide and fine particle matter, which are linked to cardiovascular disease, asthma, and other respiratory diseases. A study done by Caltech scientists at UC Riverside in California stated that by 2030 there will be approximately 13,000 premature deaths, 1,300 premature deaths, in the United States, all due to air pollution, let alone an estimated $20 billion per year taken from the people's pocket to pay for hospital bills due to cancer, asthma, and other diseases. If approved, these centers can also be tax exempt for up to 20 years after commencement for operations. On the planet, controlling the planet and the animals as well, by destroying their homes and resources and decreasing the population. The air pollution caused by data centers is hardly talked about compared to the excessive use of resources water. Why? Because it makes our air lethal. Now, some may argue that data centers have positive impact, but that's only for specific people with specific jobs and those who own specific companies. There are too many life-threatening cons that outweigh the pros to building data centers because the people paying for them realistically and metaphorically don't want them here. The land, the air, the children, and the animals are far more important than any data center could possibly be. Money and advancements in technology are not worth the lives of innocent people and beings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Denise Lewis and Wayne Mans. Good evening, Denise.
Hi, everybody. My name is Denise Lewis. I live at 14800 West Morning Dove, outside of Clearwater. And thank you all so much for taking the time to be here tonight and letting us run long. We really appreciate it. And I also agree that I think that you really, truly do have everyone's best interests at heart. And so I truly, sincerely appreciate you taking the time to slow down and really look at this. I am also a realtor, and I am the mother of a Sedgwick County firefighter. So I'm coming at you from those two perspectives. As a realtor, you know, whenever I have a favorite closer, and whenever we do closing, she talks about you can't do X, Y, and Z on your property. And she always sums it up with, so no meth labs and don't grow any marijuana, right? And nobody's planning on doing that, but those two things are illegal. But the reason you don't do those things, other than the fact that they're illegal, is because it's a detriment to your neighbor. So when you have property rights, yes, you have those property rights, but do you have those property rights at the expense of your neighbor? I don't think you do. So I think that we need to look at that very carefully, and as a realtor, I do take personal property rights very seriously. It's part of my job. I also take property values very seriously. Simple rule of supply and demand. If you've got a product that no one wants, it's less expensive. Never ever in life have I had a client look at me and say, gosh, Denise, could you show me a beautiful piece of property on 1 or 2 or 10 acres right next to an industrial complex? No, no one's ever said that. Golly, I really want to look at this beautiful white box of a building. No, they've never asked for light pollution. They've never asked for their view of the sunset to be blocked. No, none of those things. They want to live there because it is quiet, it is peaceful. You can see the stars, you can watch the sunset. This is why people want to live there. If you take that away, you take away the property values, and that is impinging on their property rights. The other thing I want to mention very quickly, as I said, my son is a firefighter, and it concerns me very deeply that the size of these buildings, the sheer volume of these buildings, the chemicals these buildings will contain, is the county, is the surrounding area, your volunteer fire departments, your Wichita fire departments, are they going to be able to deploy and take care of a fire, because it's not if, it's when? Are they going to be able to do that without the expense, taking the expense of the Wichita residents and the surrounding county residents? And I don't think they are. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Wayne Mans. Good evening, Wayne.
Good evening. Wayne Mans. I live about 2 miles from the proposed Garden Plain site. My family has, my ancestors immigrated, like so many out here in western Sedgwick County. They immigrated from Germany about 150 years ago, and we've been living in that area. It's very close to our heart, but they worked it with their bare hands, and they did it, made it into what it is today, and they did it without cell phones and definitely without data centers. But big part of what data centers are doing is they're fueling the AI engines tomorrow. And so I thought, well, what better thing to do than get their input? So I asked Google, are hyperscale data centers a good fit for growing rural residential areas? And it came back with the AI overview of hyperscale data centers are generally considered a poor fit for residential growing areas due to the significant conflicts regarding resource constipation, infrastructure strain, and quality of life. While they offer benefits like high tax revenue and in some cases infrastructure upgrades, their operational demands are often often incompatible with residential development. Here's a breakdown. Breaks it all down. I won't bore you with all of it, but some of the highlights are high resource consumption, noise and light pollution, environmental and health risks, property values and aesthetics, infrastructure mismatch, potential benefits. With careful planning could be tax revenue, job creation, infrastructure upgrades. But the way I see it, the drawbacks far outweigh the benefits. So, thank you. That's good.
I want to thank my colleagues, my fellow commissioners today. I know each one of these, and I can assure you, they read your emails, they listen to what you have to say, they analyze the information, and most of all, they do care about Sedgwick County and they care about these communities. So I appreciate them being here tonight for an extended amount of time. Appreciate Sedgwick County staff. But more importantly, I appreciate you guys coming in here tonight, going back and forth with the dialogue, and I really appreciate that because we want to hear each and every one of your unique concerns. We really do, because we want to analyze each and every one of those. March 31st, in this meeting, we'll have a planning similar to this, but it'll be a planning presentation. So the doors are going to open at 4:30. The presentation's going to start at 6, and it's scheduled to end at 7. So you guys are all welcome to be here, and we want to continue to listen to you and work through what is best for the future of Sedgwick County. So thank you guys very much.